I mean, you know better than me because you've got what, 16 modalities under your belt? A mere?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Haven't
So
mastered
you,
any of it, or I'm still working and I still learn and I grow more with each one. But yeah,
yeah.
so
But I mean, I'm guessing,
massage license helped with that because I needed the CEUs, so I have to go back either bi-yearly or yearly to get 25, I think it's 25 to 32 CEUs. So in order to keep my certification. So I kind of have to get, different things under my belt. And I just went more into the energy work type stuff. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, that makes
But,
sense. But do a
yeah.
lot of the ones that you've done, they're like the same with different language or like slightly
That's
different
what I ended
techniques,
up
but they're
finding
doing the
out.
same things?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm seeing it's like they bring it over from like it's rooted in all cultures roots have the same thing, and then it's just they label it different and they bring it out in a new form and oh try this, and it is mixing and melding a few, kind of is fun, but in all reality it's just nobody's recreating anything new. It's just a recreation of what has been. So yeah.
yeah. It's like a new interpretation of something that's universal, but
Yeah.
is difficult to
Yeah.
describe in the silly things that we call words.
Yes. I started getting frustrated with all the trainings and stuff because I'm like, okay, I get so far in, I think, oh, here's a new something new because so like in my astrology chart, I am a Sagittarius and I have quite a few signs in Sagittarius. So they're all about learning and exploring, and it really brings me to life when I'm learning something new, like and figuring out, and all that. And so I love doing them, but I get to the point and I'm like, oh, this is like such and such. I was like, okay, well, what's the point? Like, why am I learning this over again? I'm like, now it's time to just implement and do it. And I can learn, and then I learn in that process. Like when I
Yeah,
implement and I just do, I'm learning and getting to implement it and put it into effect and help other people too. So yeah,
yeah.
I
I
finally
think
got out of my
that's
way.
a habit so many people get into, not just in the healing space, but definitely in the healing space and the self-helpery space. We just we want to keep learning more knowledge. I'll be healthy if I have more knowledge, more knowledge, more knowledge, and we become
Yeah.
these gross knowledge consumers and put
Mm.
almost none of it into practice. Like we put little bits here, little bits there, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's only that doing. It's that doing that.
Yes.
It's actually where the real learning is anyway.
Yeah. It is.
But
It is. Yeah, because I can speak to that too. Because in the one modality, cranial sacral therapy, is where it really had us back up and go to into no like hardly any touch at all.
hmm,
And I had to go from deep tissue massage, like digging into people with my elbow and all my weight, and like just breathe through it, you'll be okay. And then to this barely touching the body, and I'm like, what? Like, and they're like, less pressure, less, 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 and I'm like, I'm not even touching them. How is this working? But I could start to feel like the energetic shifts in them, and I was just like, oh, like after a while, I was like, oh, what's this? What's this? And,
yeah,
and so yeah, it was definitely mind expanding. I want to say mind blowing all the time, and that I don't want to blow my mind. I want my mind to expand, and it filled my mind with all this amazing knowledge and wisdom and experiences just by doing that. So yeah.
expand on. I find that fascinating because when you were talking about, I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, have you done Reiki as well? Is that one of your
Hmm. Yeah.
modalities? So you've
Yeah.
got this deep
Yeah.
tissue, absolute punishment of people thing going on,
Yeah.
which I'm a
Uh-huh.
little scared of you now, but
Some
that's okay.
I don't utilize that anymore. That was mostly
No?
like right when I came out of school. But I mean, there is a time and a place for it because if you think about it, like even out in the world, like if you were to build a home, you would have to apply massive pressure, use it, a shovel or a crane or something to dig holes in the ground in order to break that loose so that you can build a solid foundation. So in some cases, if we are so locked into something, we need some pressure. So in on a psychological level, like if we're stuck in something, sometimes you need somebody to say that really harsh thing to wake you up and to like snap you out of it. And then you can start to work and build a let go of the whatever was in place, and then build a better foundation moving forward. And so the deep tissue, and I even, it's funny because throughout the years I backed off of using actual physical deep tissue. And I
Okay.
had clients when I was seeing them in person and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you do such a deep tissue." And I'm like,
Oh,
I'm not even doing it, but I was energetically working deep. Like
yeah.
I was into, so in the cranial sacral the training cranial sacral therapy training that I had, um they only take people who have basic or well, a couple of levels of anatomy, so that they understand like the basic structures of the body and stuff. And so it was more like, let's go into the liver, let's work with the diaphragm, like let's work with the actual physical parts of the body and see
Hmm.
what's stuck there, where there's resistance and all that. Whereas with Reiki, it's more like, let's come to the body and see what the body needs. So the
Yeah.
way I like to explain it is cranial sacral is more like internal and then becomes expansive in a lot of cases. And in Reiki, it's more expansive and then becomes more internal. And depending on the practitioner's experience of whatever they've experienced, maybe they work with the chakras or maybe they do tap into the heart. But it's not necessarily on a structural method. And in cranial sacral therapy, it's about bringing the body into like flow and alignment. So I often reference like we're basically just a bag of bones, and the muscles and ligaments hold our bones in structure. Otherwise, we'd just be a lump on the floor with bones in it, and all these organs and stuff, and we'd be like a glob, just like kind of all over the place. And so the muscles and everything hold our structure. And just like you would with a house, like if you wanted to shift the structure of a house, you would have to go in and reorganize a lot of things so that you can move the structure. And a house is much more rigid than our body, depending on the body. Some bodies are just as rigid as a house
That
if
is
they
the
don't
problem.
get the, yeah, there's the people, people who don't tap into and work with stretching or movement, and they are generally quite rigid, and their muscles are only used to doing the specific things that they've done in their life. And so yeah, working with it to find that fluidity and get that movement back in there so that they can have relief and stuff. So yeah.
So
Yeah.
the full deep tissue isn't really what you play with anymore, but you can if you need to.
Yes.
But this cranial sacral stuff, that's not the deep tissue. That's different again. Sorry, I'm
It's
a
like
little
energetic.
confused. It is more
No,
energetic.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it's more energetic. Yeah. So, and when they teach cranial sacral therapy, it's actually what they say 5 grams of pressure on the body. So basically, like setting a knuckle on the body, like you're
Yeah.
literally just holding the
Just
body, the
touching.
setting in your hands. Yeah, as you're just touching. And like in Reiki, a lot of the times they even teach like hovering too.
Mm.
So sometimes it's hands on, sometimes it's not, just depending on the practitioner and what they work best with. But massage is the actual physical touch and
Yeah.
working with the movement and more like trigger point and a little deeper. So yeah, does that help?
Yeah. It does. It does. And of all of your modalities that you do, is the cranial
Uh-huh.
sacral your go-to? I'm sure you
Yes,
blend
and
them a little bit.
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do blend quite a bit, because if there's stuff that's stuck, I'll help them use movement to get it moving in the body. So I'm not working hands-on with people right now, but I can help them learn how to work with their own body hands-on. Like, so I can help them, if they've got issues with the body, I can walk them through like self-massage techniques that they can use, because I feel like it helps bring them more into their body and helps them connect better with their body versus always having to go to somebody to have somebody else fix it. Um,
Yes.
it it's kind of like what has come to me with my guides and how I've decided to work is our body is an organism of its own. It's its own universe. It's all the cells and everything works in unison, and it's like this little, to me it just shows up to me as like this little kid. and it's like they're not paying attention to me. Like I want them to pay attention to me. So I've been guided to work with people to start to facilitate their own healing and
Yes.
bring back their inner power and find that within, versus them always having to come to me. That's one of the reasons why I closed my brick and mortar here, is because everybody was wanting to come to me to see me, because being in my presence, their body would start to shift and feel better. But I wanted to step back a little bit and say, I'm going to teach you now how to find this for yourself. And I can do that better from a distance because I'm not physically there to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I can help them find it for themselves. And I use a lot of neurolinguistics programming, which is also called NLP, which is
Hmm.
the psychology. So I help them use their words and bring their awareness into what their words are saying, how it's affecting their body, and how it's affecting their life. And a lot of people are kind of stuck in the mind in what they're saying. So I usually kind of use that. And even in cranial sacral therapy, they have a form of dialogue where it's it's not it's not leading, but you just guide them. So you walk beside them and you offer suggestions, but you don't offer suggestions. You just, what, tell me more. What's going on in your heart
Yeah.
space? Like, tell me about the heart attack, or tell me about your shoulder. What happened with that? What were the feelings that you were feeling? Those kind of things, so that you're not saying, oh, well, I bet that made you feel sad, or I bet that made you feel frustrated. We don't want to label it because we don't know what their experience was. And so I definitely work with that. And then I'm like, okay, well, now after we get through the mind, what they're talking about, and then I can say, well, that didn't feel like it landed in your stomach very well. So let's talk about your digestion. Let's talk about like what's coming up with that. So then I can help them kind of move the energy and bring their awareness to that different parts of their body too. And
Yeah.
I can bring
That's
them back home.
Oh, that's a lovely way of
Yeah.
putting it. I like that
Yeah.
because, yeah, there's a lot I like in that. I like your philosophy change, especially to
Mhm.
helping people help themselves more.
Yeah.
It's a big one for me
Yeah.
because in my personal journey from not a happy place to where I am now, and I am still definitely a work in progress, but as we all are.
Of course. We all.
Um,
Yes, I know. I'm definitely working on mine.
when things are really tough, getting the time to see the people that you rely on isn't always available. It's not always easy. And so
Yeah.
if you're starting up and you're trying to rely on others to be there to help you, that's great. It is good,
Mhm.
but it definitely has
Yeah.
its limits. And
Yeah.
instead, if people
And
can
sometimes it is
know,
needed, but
pardon?
sometimes it is needed, because
Oh,
if we're stuck in
absolutely.
something and we can't, it is needed to reach out. But yeah, I agree with you. It's, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's like that balance where, cool, I'm going to somebody who really knows their stuff and has a lot of
Mhm.
experience, and they can help me through the big hurdles. Through the
Yeah.
bits like if I'm down in a valley and I'm like, oh shit, how the hell do I? They can help me find the trail to get up. But those little
Yeah.
small rises that happen daily, if you can be there for yourself for those,
Yeah.
it probably means half the time you don't get stuck in those valleys as much anyway. But if you do,
Mhm.
you're already looking for the pathways, and it happens quicker. So it's like you're working as a team
Yeah.
in that case.
and
So for me,
and you
I
don't
love
see
that.
the valley as the darkness. Yeah, you don't see the valley as the darkness, you see it as the beauty that is there too. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. As we get more healed, I'm just thinking back to when I first started this journey and everything was darkness. So
Mhm. Yep. Now it's like I can find the beauty in the darkness, because I still have moments where I go into introspection, but it's like it's an exciting adventure, and I'm like, okay, now I know I've pulled myself out of it enough, and I've walked through the darkness enough that I will eventually find the light one way or another. And so I can pull myself through it, and then I don't spend as much time there, and I can, come in and out of it when needed. And there's sometimes I willingly go there because I'm like, okay, there's something here that I get to address, and I get to work through. And so sometimes I feel like I go there a little too much, and it's like out of fun and curiosity. It's like, okay, I gotta get out of here, because not so many people like hanging out, in their darkness. So I get to come out and be in the world some more. But
I don't
it's
know.
it's really helped me become more confident in it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I found that for myself. Even for me today, I wasn't feeling my normal self. I was feeling a little bit, um, I was starting to doubt myself. I could feel doubts in my mind today.
Hmm.
And it's just a case of,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I'm feeling right now. I accept that's it. And
Yeah.
it's all good. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's going to, I've got techniques and it helps it move along faster and all the rest of it. But some days it's just a little bit different to the others. And it's like, that's okay. It's part of being human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with all
Yeah.
the work we do, we don't just sit there and ah, from the rooftops 24 hours a day. Or at least I don't. I don't know about you. I mean, I've spoken to some monks. They don't seem to do that every day. They still get angry and tired and grumpy, and
Yes.
it's how we deal with it that
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah. No, most definitely. I definitely do rotate through the emotions and can watch my roller coaster, through the days. Sometimes it's a small, gentle roller coaster, and other days it's a big flip one that flips me upside down. But I can definitely work with it. I have to say too, like my journey with astrology, even though I was very resistant to begin with, has helped me navigate even that a lot better, because I can see how when things are happening in the universe, in the planets and stuff, how it like is also an effect on us. So it kind of it's almost like I don't want to say it gives me a reason for feeling that way, but when there's a lot of pressure coming from an outside stimulus that we can't see, it makes sense. And I'm like, okay, so I know it's not just me, it's the world that surrounds me as well. It's what's happening as a whole. And I've watched enough things happen globally, like that. I know that it's not just me, and it helps me expand and see that I am just a little light in the vastness of this world, where each little lights that light it up. So, but because like for instance, we've had a lot of solar flares this morning, and so
Okay.
sometimes solar flares can and it's like I'm watching a dance without being able to like actually see it. But there's also what they call the Schumann resonance, and then there's solar activity. So there's solar flares and there's coronal holes and stuff. But basically, the sun is a big ball of gas, and so it will emit like bursts, like burps and things like that out into the universe. And when it does, it comes down and it basically goes around the Earth's atmosphere, so we kind of feel it a little bit, and then the Earth will actually respond in a lot of cases when it hits. So then the Earth will vibrate or shake or have its own structural movement. And we've been experiencing a lot of that lately. And so it's kind of like when you go stand out in the US, we have up northern, like in Iowa, it's so flat. Like you could see if you had a telescope, you could see through somebody's window 5 miles across, the way, because it's just like so flat. And when you're up there, the wind just you can't see the wind, but you're driving your car and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, like how am I going to drive straight? Cause it's like, it'll get like 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds up there. Like it's really intense. Yeah. And so, that's basically kind of happening to us. And so there's all this pressure coming from the sun, and then the earth's like, wow, but we can't feel it. Well, I'm sorry, we're not aware that that's what we're feeling. And so all of a sudden you'll be talking to somebody, and then for no reason at all they like start yelling, and then it turns into this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense now. Like, it's not, yes, that altercation or that situation probably did happen, and yes, they had the patterns as well, but it's really cool to watch the pressurization and like the effects of that as well too. I don't know. It's very interesting.
Well,
So
explore that for me
weather
more because
forecast
that's
for.
it's an area I know a little bit of the science about it, so I understand like the
Mhm.
Earth's magnetic field is what protects us from a lot of those burps. I love that you call them solar burps. That's hilarious. I love it. Perfect.
It's a lack of a better, it's because it does. It just kind of opens up and it kind of shoots it out, so it's like burp.
Yeah, no, I think it's beautiful. So we're protected from usually the most harsh elements of that through the way our planet works. I get all that, but I'm not so much aware of the woo-woo side of it. I'll call it woo-woo, and I think
Uh-huh.
you've labelled yourself a woo-woologist, I believe. So I'm
Yes,
talking to the right person.
woo-wologist.
Um,
Yes. Uh-huh.
Things that we can't fully explain yet, where when these things
Yeah.
hit us, strange events happen more. Like,
Hmm. Yeah.
can you jump into that more? Because it's an area that I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah. So to put it in more simple things, it's kind of like when you go out. I don't know what it's like in Brazil when it rains, but I'm sure it rains there, and anywhere for that matter. When you go out to rain, and when you go out and it's raining, you want to be a little bit more cautious with how you're walking. You're probably going to put on a rain jacket and a rain suit, rain boots, or you don't, and you will most likely get wet, but you accept that. And it's part of it, but some activities outside you're probably not going to be able to do. If you wanted to go to a theme park or, do those kind of sports, you can't do that kind of fun stuff. So it's a way of working with the elements, and it's very similar with this. You can see the rain. It is actually clear and translucent, but you can see it falling. And so it's similar to it like with the wind. Like you can't necessarily see the wind until it becomes a tornado and starts moving so vastly that it's got the different shades of color. And even at that, you still can't quite see it, but you can most definitely feel it. And
Yes.
so I have monitors on my phone. Luckily, they've come up with the technology just as they have with the weather forecast. They haven't it hasn't gotten to a point where they can forecast it yet, because there's so much about the sun that they're still learning about and things. But so it's not as up to date as our weather is, but you can tell, it will tell me when there was solar activity, or when there was the Schumann resonance, which is the Earth's vibrations. And so I basically started studying it just as I did with astrology. And they do the same thing in astrology too. They know that the planets are going to be moving into certain zodiac signs, which represent certain things that happen in life, or certain areas of life. So you may be feeling more pressure in your home, or you may feel an enlightened, lighter feeling in your home environment. Those they so they can forecast astrology a bit more because they've studied it as well too. So, but with the Schumann resonance, it's basically like a big windstorm coming from the sun that wraps around. And if you think about, so it's not as strong of a pressure as it would be, because our ozone, the field that goes around the earth, protects us some. But at the same time, I talk with my hands too much. Sorry, my hand just came up.
Bring it
um,
on.
so the pressure comes through, and then so it has that effect on us. So there's like windstorms happening, or pressurization that's happening to our body, that we feel, that's there. And so it can cause whatever we're experiencing at the moment to be heightened, if that makes sense.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're having a conversation and one were to happen, I could easily go into, why did you say that way? And you're like, what? I didn't even say it that way. Like that's not what I was intending, but it puts pressure on me. And so if I'm not aware of it, then I can lash out in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
bends our interpretation of what's happening. It's probably the best
yes.
way I can
Yeah.
think to put my own little spin on that. Like that pressure
Yeah. But
forces us to look at stuff more aggressively or more passively or in some sort of alternate way than we normally would.
yeah. And it's very much like our elders too, like would say, I don't know if you've ever had been around somebody that is in the older generations, and all of a sudden they're like, ooh, my elbow hurts. We're gonna have a rainstorm soon. And people are like, what are you talking about? Right. And it's the pressurization that's changing and the barometer.
Hmm.
And I'm not as adept with all the technical terms, the scientific terms and stuff like that, but I know that they're there and I've heard them throughout the years. And so now when it shifts, the pressurization in the body changes. So then there's more aches, so there's more pains, and it's going to go to that person's weak spot, which is maybe their elbow or their shoulder or their knee. It might be different for each person. And so the solar flares and things are similar and the same nature too. And then the Schumann resonance, because if you think about it, it's like what happens when an earthquake happens. You know, the earth is shaking and vibrating, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is weird. I've never had this happen before. You know, I don't know what to do. This is unusual." And the Schumann resonance is that on a much lighter scale. Like we can't physically feel it, but it's
Yep.
happening. And so all of a sudden your world feels like it's crumbling and you don't know why. So when I first started tapping into that, I really thought I was losing my mind because I literally was walking through, we went to Menards, which is a hardware store here. And we were walking through there and I was a little overstimulated with the things that were going on, but I was like, let's go back and look at some cabinets and have some fun. And so we're walking along on a smooth concrete, you know, store. I was in the middle of a big store, so it was smooth concrete floor, and all of a sudden it felt like the floor dropped out from underneath me. I actually kind of tripped a little as I was walking, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? And the next thing I know, I was like, I need the bathroom. Like, so I ran to the restroom and it literally like came straight through me and it like knocked the wind out of me for a minute. And I came out and I
Wow.
looked down at my phone. I looked down at my phone and it was, I can't remember if I think it was a solar activity or Schumann resonance, one of the two. And I was just like, holy cow. And there's been multiple times where sometimes it comes in and it's like an enlightenment and it's like, whoo, yay. This feels great. I have so much energy. I want to do all these things. And other times it's just like, what the heck just happened? Like, and you just feel all this pressure or this anger or this like frustration that comes on out of nowhere. And
Personally,
it's very,
I think that the Schumann resonance in that one just didn't want you looking at cabinets.
I was like, it's not the right time to, and that could very well be.
No,
This is
it's not the
not
right
what you're supposed
time.
to be doing
These are
right
not the
now.
cabinets you're looking for.
Yes, I get that's another way of looking at it, most definitely too. Yeah,
Yeah.
not the time for that yet. Not the place for that. And it I didn't do a whole lot after that because it shook me up so much. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, a big experience like that where you're just walking along and you're suddenly on the ground. It's not something that normally happens to us unless we have like dodgy legs or something like that. So yeah, it's going to make you
exactly.
question a few things for a while.
Well, and it is very much like that because I was an alcoholic for a very long time, so I did drink a lot. It wasn't yeah, it was more yeah, I was functional alcoholic, but it was very similar to that. Like it had all of a sudden it feels like I've had a few drinks and this but it comes and it goes just as quick as it happens a lot of the times too. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. No,
Yeah.
it's a part of that because I've only ever really thought about that from the purely scientific, um, and seeing it. Yeah, maybe there's some sort of seems like there's some sort of correlation between that and earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that. I've never thought about
Oh,
it
there is.
on a human level of it can just distort us as well as individuals. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's truly a fascinating insight that yeah, I might have to do a little bit more investigation on.
Yeah, it is. So the more, because I, for a long time, I didn't know what was going on with me, and I didn't realize that I had a problem. But I felt a lot of things, and so like I pushed it aside and medicated myself out of it. And so around 2011, I made the decision to start figuring out what was wrong with me because I kept going to doctors, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and they would run tests, and they're like, everything's fine. And so I started diving into getting more involved in my health and understanding things deeper. And as I did that, I slowly started cleaning up my system and eating more healthy and natural foods and, cooking more. And I still eat out, but I'm very particular on where I eat out and the foods that I choose to put into my body. And the more and more I did that, the more and more I was more sensitive to the things in the environment and also other people. Like I can tap into people's emotions and feelings and things. And sometimes it can be a little overstimulating. It's a little too much now. It's like it's a gift and it's like, okay, but I kind of don't want to go out into any big environments right now. So um but I've also worked with that too because there's a side of astrology that's called astrocartology, and it's
Mm.
basically how the world affects you. Like so astrology is the planets were all in these positions when you were born. So that's therefore your manual. Like it's a manual for how to navigate your life, or a map to navigate your life with a little bit more ease and understanding. And so
Hmm.
astrocartology is a manual for the earth and where the planets were on the earth. So I thought that was a really inspiring and enlightening time period for me when I was working with that. I was working really close with a mentor that was all into all the things that helped me with the woo woo side very much. And I was doing a lot of road trips, and I was a lot of the times I was on my own for the road trips. So I'm driving along, and I was going through a phase where I wasn't listening to much music, and it was just kind of like being alone with my thoughts and having the time to get out. And I'm like, why am I driving through these towns and all of a sudden I just start crying out of the middle of nowhere? Like there was no
Oh.
thought there, like all of a sudden I would feel these emotions. And my mentor was like, you were picking up on the energy of that place. And I've also heard stories of like some people who don't have a fear of driving over bridges. If they're sensitive and they drive over a bridge, they all of a sudden might feel fear, and it might be the people in other cars and things like that. It may not be their fear necessarily.
Oh.
And I was just
Okay.
like, huh, this is interesting. Yeah, so I started putting more study into it, and I found astrocartology, which is basically different energies of different places. Well, it can affect me different, and it's different for you because you were born in, your astrology. Our astrology is kind of like our fingerprints. There's no two are alike. They're very
Yes.
similar, and they might have aspects that are similar, but they're not identical. And so once I started studying, I actually first what I did when I first got it is I went back to all the places I had visited and compared it with what planet was there, and or what aspect was in that area. And I was like, okay, this makes sense now. Like this makes a whole lot of sense. Like I had gone to Colorado when I was younger, and Colorado is a place for motivation, and it's my Mars line, and so it's a place that's can be highly motivating for me. But there for everything, for every good aspect or flowing aspect, there's also restriction, and so it could be too much motivation, and it could be too much push when if I'm not ready for that. And so
Yeah.
I had very much that same experience, and that was back when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. I went out there, and I was like, wow, okay. And there was so much pressure that I had a lot of head, like I had a nasal congestion, and like I had a lot of stuff going on with my ears when I was out there, partially due to the altitude, but also partially due to the pressure of things. And
Yeah.
so I was just like, wow, that's interesting. So I now when I go to places, I'll tap into the energy. And then it also makes sense like how when we travel with other people, you go places and certain people, some person, may be a little bit more agitated, and some person may feel enlightened, and another may feel ready to do business. Like if it's that kind of,
Yeah.
they're ready to get down to it. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? That's not what we agreed. Like all of a sudden this friction happens. And I'm like, well, this makes sense why when you travel, there's all this issues because people are going through all these different lines, and you're flying through or driving through or going by boat through all these different aspects. And so you kind of all different parts of life are getting thrown at you, and you're like, what is going on? I just wanted to go on a trip and see the ocean.
Nothing so simple. It does remind me, I was
No.
chatting to somebody a few weeks back, and they were talking about how they did work on sacred sites. So they did energy work at sacred sites.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering
Hmm.
how, yeah, these are quite possibly highly related things just in different languages.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's quite
There are
fascinating.
a lot of the sacred sites built with the intentions, or I mean, going back as far as the earth itself has its own vortexes or chakras, if you will. So it has its, like, we have our main energy chakras that are in our body, and the earth has its main energy chakras. And so those places are definitely more heightened too. So, but I have, so that's another fun experience. All the woo woo fun things that I've done, right?
Bring it.
So I went to Virginia for a trip, and I took my daughter out. She was in her, I think she was like around 20 or something, but we decided to take a road trip to West Virginia to visit one of her friends. She was in AmeriCorps for a little while. And so they had hung out, and we're like, let's go drive down there and see them. And so when we went to visit, I was like, I like to sit with the earth wherever I am so that I could just kind of tap into the energies of it. And so after we'd been there for a little bit, I was like, okay, I want to go find a place to sit. And so we found this park, and I didn't know about it at the time. I just picked a park on the map, and I hadn't looked into much of this. It was about around that same time I was doing all the road trips and all the things were coming up for me. But so I picked this random park. We go sit at this park, and we're like walking through the creek in the park, and we picked up rocks of coal that were made of coal. And so I was just like, oh, this is cool, and didn't think anything of it. And so then I go and I sit and I lay with a tree, because I always like to lay at the base of the tree and kind of look up, and then just trees help me ground and get centered. And so I lay my blanket down and I'm sitting there, and there was a friend next to me. We're just kind of laying there, and all of a sudden I felt as if everything stopped. Like, I just,
Okay.
stillness came over my body. And I'm like, am I even breathing? Like, I was just sitting there, and I'm like, I don't even think I need to breathe right now. And I'm like, what is going on? And I noticed all of a sudden I was laying with my hands on my chest, and I was just like, the top of my hand is cold and the bottom of my hand is really warm. It was just like, it was the weirdest thing. And there were kids playing in the background, but there was just this stillness. I'm tapping back into it now, just talking about it, but the stillness and this calmness. And I was just like I had never experienced. And trees always, sitting in nature does bring that to me naturally, but it was totally different. And I got up and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I don't I feel weird, like this feels, and I literally felt like I was high. And so I was like, how did I get high? I was like, this is weird. And so as I got up, we kind of did a few things, and we headed back towards the hotel, because I was kind of out of it. I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. And as I'm driving back, I'm like, no thought, just driving down the highway, and I'm like, blinker, turn, like, just it was crazy. There was very little things going on. We got back to the hotel, and I had just got a text message that came through that the office space that I had, the building was being sold, and I had 30 days to get out, and I had to move my office, which I kind of knew about, but I kind of didn't know about. And so it came on as a bit of a shock. But here I am in this space of stillness, and then I've got this shock, this oh my gosh, I gotta get all this done. Here I am out of town and everything. I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I started freaking out. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on with me. Like, I literally started to kind of have a little bit of a panic attack, because I'm like, this is the weirdest feeling ever. And so I texted my mentor at the time, and I was like, I'm having issues here. And she's like, what's going on? Tell me the details. I said, well, I went and I sat at the base of these four mountains with this tree, and I got up, and now I feel like I'm high. And she goes, you're not high, you're stoned. And I was like, what? I was like, I knew that in the past people have talked about, like, when they smoke marijuana, they either get high or they get stoned. I never correlated it being a difference. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes, you just sat with Mother Earth at the base of four mountains. She's like, you are grounded. And she's like, you're a lot of the times. So St. Louis is a very spiritual place for me. So I'm up in the clouds a lot. I'm, very into all the mystical, magical things. And so it takes, in order for me to find balance, I go sit with the trees and I ground myself. But this was it was full of coal, which is about as grounded as you can possibly get, right? And at the base of four mountains, so it was lots of earth around me, so it just brought me down to this grounded centered place. And the funny thing is when she said that, she's like, you're not grounded, you're stoned. And I'm like, I never knew there was a difference. Like, I
Uh,
thought they were the same thing. And then I'm like, and then
Same.
come to find out that, yeah, with there's different strands of marijuana that you can use, and it affects different people differently. So some people will smoke it and get more energized, and it'll be more like a caffeine stimulant. And then other people will smoke it and it will bring them, it's more of a sedative and will actually ground them. And so
That's
I hadn't realized that at the time either. But yeah, and so so going to those vortexes, right? The energy starts stirring within us and will can bring clarity, it can bring confusion. I mean, if you think of an energy vortex as very similar to a tornado. So some people love tornadoes and some people hate them. So you could go to that. And if you're not ready to embrace the things that it's going to bring to the surface, it's definitely going to feel more like a tornado in your life. And like
yeah.
it's bringing up all the gunk and the stuff. And I'm not ready for that. And, or if you're ready to embrace it, it could feel very enlightening and freeing.
Yeah.
So
I'm still getting over the fact that there's a difference between being high and being stoned because I had no idea.
yeah, it was mind blowing for or mind expanding for me because I was like I never thought there was a difference, but yeah, there totally is. And yeah, to have that much of an effect that I could just sit with the ground, that was the biggest one for me. Like to be that grounded and that centered in that moment was a wild experience. So yeah.
So it was like you were part of the earth. Like there was
Yeah. It literally felt
thought
like I melded
vanished.
into the earth. And the person I was sitting with and it's like, yeah, it would take us forever to move. And I was like, I feel like I would have to erode away. Like it was I literally it was the trippiest experience I've ever had. And yeah, it was crazy. I literally felt like I was moving as fast as the earth was. Like I was just sedentary rock, like nothing.
I'm not sure
So,
that those stones of coal were really coal. I think they might have been something else, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah. No, well, it's funny though, because back in my younger years, in my, early 20s and stuff, I would occasionally, smoke marijuana and stuff like that. And I dabbled with a few things here and there, but I was so sensitive that I would have like all the signs and all the things, and I couldn't do it in public if I did it. And it got to the point where it was just too intense, even when I did do it. So I wasn't ready for it at the time. But yeah, so yeah, to know that just the earth can do that to us, like we don't need to necessarily ingest things, but yeah. Yeah.
That's quite a thought indeed. Because I've never had an
Yeah.
experience like that with just sitting under a tree. So yeah,
No,
that's
but
that's pretty
what
out
about
there.
the ocean? How does the ocean make you feel?
I feel when I'm in nature of pretty much any sort, whether I'm in a barren desert, in the ocean, up a mountain, in a jungle, any, I just feel this overwhelming sense of peace. The further I am
So that's
into nature, the more peace I feel. But you're talking at a different extreme. Like you're going to a whole different place in this. It's like
but
so I
it
haven't.
I believe that anybody has the ability to feel it if they want, if they open up their mind to it and take the
Mhm.
steps to get there. I walked a path and kept following the path, and it brought me to that.
Yeah,
I got rid of the stimulants. I got rid of the thoughts in my mind. Like I didn't get rid of them, but I let go of them and don't, utilize them as much anymore. So I'm more sensitive to those little shifts and changes. So if you want to play a little bit, when you're in
let's
nature, do
play.
you feel a different sort of Do you feel a different sort of peace when you're in different places?
Uh, Potentially, I've not really stopped to think about the type of piece. It's more like a presence when
Mm-hmm.
I'm there, so I'm not necessarily consciously thinking about that. Um,
Okay.
I might still have thoughts going on, but there's just there's no impetus behind them. That they're just there.
Cool. Have you
There's
ever?
not a lot of connection to them. They're just existing and passing through.
Good. Cool. Yeah. So, have you ever done any breath work?
Hmm.
You have. Have you done like breath work classes
No, no, I've
where
not done any
you go
classes.
for
No.
go for like go for like an hour long or hour and a half long or something like that? The first time I ever tapped into this was in breath work. I had taken
Okay.
a I went to an event that was being held. It was an hour and a half of gong and kundalini yoga, and then an hour and a half of breath work. And towards the end of the breath work, a lot of the times they have you aggressively breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out throughout the class. And then after you've recycled the oxygen throughout your body so much and filled up your cells, they have you hold your breath at the end
Yes.
and hold it. Okay, so I reached that point and they're like, hold your breath, and whenever you need to breathe, breathe, but see how long you can hold it. And I had tapped into that there in that moment, and I'd sat there and I literally was like, I don't I don't need to breathe. I'm
Yeah.
fine. Like, I hit a bit of that peace and that stillness within, and there was like no thoughts. It was just, I call it my bliss. And because it was just, there was no thing, there was no time, there was no space. It was just pure oneness, and it was just beautiful. And if I wouldn't have started slowly tapping into those things, I don't think I would have had that experience at the base of the mountains in West Virginia,
Mm.
because the thoughts would have been consistently going, and I would have been more like, let's go hike, let's go look at the flowers, let's go do, like more in my thoughts and my presence versus just my intentions always have been to literally just go sit with the land somewhere and to tap
Yeah.
into it and feel it. So I kind of set the intention for it as well and had done the work to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah. I see
But
that
for
being a big difference.
most people, it is that I love to go in nature. I just don't know why, but I just like nature because it's calming, or, and that, and also too, if it's that person's experience to have. So I know part of my journey here is a lot more on the spiritual side of things and a lot more on the woo woo side of things. So experiences for like that for me are going to be a little different than other people necessarily.
Yeah. But
There's
everyone
maybe a
needs a
little
little bit
different.
of woo woo.
Oh, most definitely. They do tap into it. I love it all the time. I'll have people be like, "Oh, I'm really not into that kind of stuff, but can you tell me?" Like, they start asking questions and they're like curious. And I'm like, you really want to, but you just don't want to admit that you want to. And I was super resistant to this stuff for a long time. Like the people that do the people that were just like me back then, I I hate to think of the type of person that I was. I wasn't rude, but I was just like, I'm not gonna partake in that because they're crazy. And so that's why I had resistance to it for a really long time, and my business and stuff wasn't flowing. And finally, like, I walked up to people and I'd say something, they're like, oh, that's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm crazy, and that's okay. I enjoy it. Crazy is the real for me, the normal for me. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like, things started changing and people started taking me seriously. And then I had people just random come up to me. I was working in an office space with a lot of different businesses. It was, everybody had their own business, in there. And there was lawyers and chiropractors and like all different accountants and, a little bit of everything in there. And was standing up at the front desk talking to the attendant there for a little bit, and this gentleman walked up and he was a lawyer, and I was like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, I'm doing all right. We just had this little brief conversation, And then I can't remember, I'm trying to remember how it started, but something happened. And I think it was when he asked me what I do. And I was like, I just play with magic. I was like, I just help, tap into the inner magic of people. And old me would have never said that to a lawyer, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't, he's not gonna, what, I can't say that. So I said something to the effect of, I just play with magic and help people tap into their, inner wisdom and bring the magic to life. And he looks at me and he stopped. And then he's like, you know what? I was just talking to this lady the other day, and she said I got some kind of like third eye chakra thingy going on, and like just out, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, yeah, so I can help you with that. Like, I gave him some essential oils to breathe in. I got some specifically for the third eye, and gave him some essential oils, and I asked him what was going on, and then I helped him reframe it and put in a couple of affirmations, and sent him on his way. And it was just a little brief interaction, and I'd
Yeah.
gone down and I brought him back up. I was like, hey, here, try these oils. And he's like, okay. A couple weeks or a couple months go by or whatever, and all of a sudden I see him in the hallway and he goes, you, I gotta talk to you. And I'm
Oh
like,
no.
yeah. I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, so many things have happened since I talked to you. He's like, it's crazy. He's like, and all these things started falling into place for him. And he ended up selling his office and traveling and moving. And yeah, like a whole bunch of things. It's all stuff that he was like looking to do, but was kind of holding himself back. But just a couple of shifts and working with the things. And it was like, yeah. And so old me in the past would have never had that experience, because I would have thought, all lawyers, I can't walk around talking about my crazy woo stuff, because they're gonna think I'm weird. And I just started owning my weirdness or my uniqueness and my gifts, and being who I am, and it opened up so many doors for me. So yeah.
It opens up the right doors. I think it probably closes lots of doors, but they're doors that
Mhm.
aren't needed anyway.
Yeah, they were
It
doors
opens up the right
that
ones.
helped. They helped in the past, and they helped me get to where I am. But sometimes you just got to move to a different room, and yeah, so you close some doors and you open some other doors, let some air through, and yeah, keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, to me that says a lot. There's so many things about that, but you
Yeah.
don't know what people are thinking inside. I think that's the biggest thing to me out of that story of yours is, this guy was thinking about all of these things
Hmm.
and you allowed him to crack that door open.
Hmm.
Just by acknowledging yourself, he was able to acknowledge himself and
Yeah.
change a life. This is
Yep.
crazy. It's
It's
that
I've
simple.
seen so many situations that could have gone many other different ways, but just one shift in my perspective, and because I credit it to my doing the inner work and addressing so many parts of myself that I'm not afraid of myself anymore, and I can step into who I truly am. And so then therefore when I see other people, I can I've kind of always been a chameleon, just by trade, because growing up in the environment, I learned to kind of adapt, which we all do in our own way. And it gives me the opportunity to stop and to see. And when a situation would get heightened or start to go in a different way, I can really address what it is, and a fear of mine coming up. And maybe it's not really that person, and maybe it is, and maybe I should run. But at the same time, I just trust my inner wisdom, and I know which ones are safe enough to work through and to step into, and not having to run from them. So yeah, it's really cool stuff. And I'm excited to spread the word and to talk to as many people as I can about it, and so that they can find it for themselves too. But yeah, it really amazes me, and I'm really proud of the growth that I've experienced in allowing myself just to embrace those parts. And it the practitioners that I love to see so many people that are doing the work and in the healing environment and showing up for other people, because giving people that grounded sense of safety in just open a container that they can let things go in, like that. He probably would have been scared to say that to anyone else, right, in most
Yes.
cases, in a lot of cases. But it's like it's this sense that we all have, that we can pick up on the subtleties of who's safe to talk about to things and who's not. So yeah,
Yeah, I think
it,
I'm
it
I'm starting to develop a bit of a theme where those safe spaces feel safe because there's aspects of us that just get to be seen, fully seen, that
yeah,
aren't normally.
yeah.
That's what it is that feels safe about it. So I
Mhm.
mean, that person's probably very safe talking about certain other topics with other people in that industry, but that
Yeah,
particular topic, in your own mind, like we make judgments about these things.
yeah,
But the moment you were able to be you, he felt safe to talk about something that he probably didn't have many other outlets for because he could be seen.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's a hard thing to achieve sometimes. So like
Hmm.
we all have friends and family, and they all have their opinion of us. They all have their own versions of who we are,
Hmm.
and we may be seen by them, but not completely
Hmm.
seen in all aspects, which is a tricky thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, people that can hold
Or seeing,
space.
yeah, it's I've been working through some of that too, because my family dynamics are shifting as the years go through. And so it's being seen. They saw me as I was as a young child, and they saw me, I'm the youngest of four. So in that environment, I'm always seen as the youngest,
Mm-hmm.
and which is great. And I saw it as a curse for so many years, because I went out into the world seeing myself only as the youngest. And so, therefore, everyone that came into my environment saw me as the youngest. And so I felt like I had to earn my way in a lot of ways, and I had to express. I would always throw out, well, I'm married, or I have a child, or those kind of things, and people are like, oh, you don't look that old. and it was a common thing, a regular thing. And I was working at a retail job with a mom and pop place. And so one time, and I was 35, and a person came in, and they're like, I wanted to get my watch fixed. And I was like, cool, I can take it for you if you'd like. And they're like, that's okay, your dad can get it for me. And I was just like, I took offense to it, because I'm like, what? Like, I'm old enough. Like, I was like, it was a really big issue for me. But the really cool thing about that is that my family is the only person that can ever see me as that way too at the same time.
Yeah.
um Other people may not. They've never seen that version of me, because they didn't know me at that time. So there's a beauty to both sides of it. And I'm working through this as I speak this to you, because I've worked through a lot of family dynamics, because it was young me that wanted to be seen by them in the way that I thought I was. And they see me in that way, but I couldn't see me in that way for a long time. So I didn't think
Yeah.
that they saw me in that way, when in reality they did. And once I moved past that, then I was able to see that. And then they started seeing me, they could see me in both lights too, if that makes sense.
I think it does.
It's kind of like a circle effect. And it's almost like, I'm processing this as I speak it.
No,
So
please take your time.
it's
We're in
almost
no
like
hurry.
there's there's never any way for both parties to see something as the same thing, because if we're on two different parts of the world, you can't see the sun as the same. It's either up,
Mm-hmm.
like on this side of the world, the sun's either up, this side of the world, it's down. When it reverses, it's still the same. And if it's here, it's rising, and if it's here, it's setting. So
Yes.
it's very similar with our family as well too. Like, once I see myself as accomplished, then they start to see me as the young child again. And so I'm like, no, I got all this, like, wait a minute, I thought we had this, I thought we had this fixed. But it consistently gives us the opportunity to evolve and grow, just as
Yeah,
the world, as the sun continues to evolve around, it gives us the daily experience and to evolve and grow in each day. So yeah,
yeah.
sorry,
I love that
that
because
was
it's
real time processing.
I love it. Thank you very much. And for me,
Yeah.
that's really beautiful because I think of it in a very different way. I think of it more in terms of um, our beliefs and our lenses and all that sort of stuff. So no two people can see themselves, or no two people are going to look at the same thing the same because we've all had different
Yeah.
experiences. So we're all seeing the same thing through these different filters, through these different lenses. But what you're
Yeah.
describing is you're putting it in, yeah, in terms of even just placement on the earth, and it is everything's different. Everything's from a slightly different point of view. No matter
Yeah.
how much the actions are the same, the
Mhm.
interpretation's going to be different every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. Well, then, how do we get harmony in the world? Small question for you, Nancy. Just
How do we get harmony in the world?
how do we get harmony? How do
So,
we create a culture of harmony?
um, I believe by truly showing, well, the more we continue to show up and do this, the more that it will become a natural, and also to see, my personal opinion is to find the good in the bad,
Yeah.
is to see what it is, see what it's bringing to the world. Because I use the analogy a lot of the times, especially during COVID when that happened. Whenever if you have that one closet in the house that, or that drawer in the house that you just stuff all the stuff in, right? It just holds all the stuff. You got to go clean it out, but you really don't want to mess with it, right? And when you go to this closet to mess with it, you open it up, and you start pulling stuff out. Next thing you know, you got your whole hall's a mess and it's falling over into a bedroom, because you just got all this stuff everywhere. And you're like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And then you look at it and you're like, holy crap, I got the biggest mess. What the heck was I thinking? Why did I even start this? Now my whole house is a mess, and it was just a closet before. I should have just left it the closet. But now the whole house is a mess, right? And it's just this disaster everywhere. And so then you start slowly picking it up, and this is going to go. I'm going to donate this. I'm going to throw that away because I've had it for 5 years and it's out of date and I don't even need it anymore, right? And so you start picking and choosing and going through all this stuff, and then you put it all back in, and the closet's all clean and all straightened, and everything's perfect, right? So I look at that in terms of society as well. And that this is kind of my how
Yeah.
I view politics or the world and how things happen, except for the closet is the world. And so in order to find that clarity and that, structure and that cleanliness, we have to kind of go through the disaster of bringing all the things out to the light and, deciding what we want to do with them. And so for me personally, like, I don't feed into in the US, I don't know what it's like in other cultures, but I'm sure it's very similar. I've seen things. I haven't had a lot of worldly experience, but instead of going into situations and arguing, or yelling at each other and speaking our truth, stopping and taking the time to truly understand where both parties are coming from. And it's a difficult place for a lot of people because they're coming from a fear of safety and survival. And so when that's put on the table, you're trusting somebody else with the safety of your family, your home, and all the different things. So it becomes very difficult, but it doesn't have to be. And also, I really believe that there's, the balance can come in, or the balance is starting to come in from, uh giving more, and,
Yeah.
what sides, instead of it needs to be this or that, how can both sides will compromise, is the word I'm looking for. How can we
Yeah.
compromise with this versus it has to be a this or it has to be a that. And I fought with it a lot of times because there's a part of me that wants to get involved in politics,
Hmm.
and there's a part of me that doesn't, because in some ways I'm very much okay with not being a part of it. I think it comes from me being the youngest. I never had control over the dynamics of the situation, and so uh being the youngest, I have no control over what's going on with the bills in the household structure because I'm the baby running around the house, right? And so I feel that coming up a lot, but at the same time it's like there's also a beauty to that because I can take myself out of the structure of it and just see the simplicity of it. And my hope is that a lot more people can start to see the simplicity of what's going on and not take it all so personally, so we can let go of the fear that is ignited and that causes a lot of the aggression towards each other. Because really and truly, if you have country A and country B and there's an issue between the two, and the way that it has been structured is that, oh, they're not going to give us what we want, so we're going to go take it by force, versus saying, can we, what if we did this, or what is it that you're really looking for, and working, and if we don't get it, then okay, well, how can we provide this for ourselves, or how can we live without it,
Yeah.
kind of taking it more towards those terms. So but there again, I'm not in that world, and so I have willingly taken the step that it's okay for the world to work it out in the way that it needs to work it out, and I'm going to give them love and support in every way that I can, and the way that I can do it is by working with people one on one and helping them find their inner truth and their inner safety, because I really feel that if we take a little bit of time out of our busy lives to turn inward and address those inner trust and inner faith and inner safety parts of us, that we can
Hmm.
find that within us, and it doesn't matter what's going on in the world outside of
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
because we
I
can
know.
see it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I know that for me, I get caught up in this one, in that I understand what you're saying in terms of if we find peace inside, then that peace will be reflected in our outside world. I get that intellectually, and there's moments where I get it in my heart, and I can live that for moments.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so easy. It's so easy to get pulled away by the chaos of life and go, oh, but I could fix, and I could do that, and oh, what if, and oh my god, oh, this is stressful, and so for me, it's this constant. It feels like a battle that shouldn't be a battle. In that,
Mm. Yeah.
yes, I have this knowing that peace comes from within first,
Mm-hmm.
and I have experienced it, but it's hard to stay there.
Yeah.
I
Well, and I don't
constantly.
know that yeah, I don't know that we are meant to be there constantly, because we're
Mm,
not meant to be in the closet constantly with all the stuff,
no,
right? We're moving throughout all the
no.
rooms of the home, right? So it's okay to tap in there. And I would say the more you tap into that piece, the more and more that will become, it will start to grow, just like when you go to the gym, you work out a specific muscle. If you just work out your biceps the whole time, then your biceps will slowly start to grow and slowly start to grow, and then you will be strong and you'll be able to lift anything with your arms, not so much your legs, but you'll be able to lift it with your arms. But as that muscle grows, and I believe it's the same thing with peace. And i
Mm,
really I really think that the world as a whole has done a phenomenal job at going to the gym and lifting the weights of fear and anger. And I also know that that has helped us understand fear and anger at a deeper level, because just as we were talking earlier, we both embraced our darkness. We both, stepped into it. We walked through it. We've pulled ourselves out of it, and now we're on the other side of it. And so I very much think, feel, and know that the world is in that same process. Like right now, the world is just in that darkness, and it's churning and it's turning and it's moving, and like things are changing, and even though we don't want it to, but it is. Just like we had the closet all over, strung all over, the living room and all the different rooms. We're kind of in the middle of that right now, and I
Yeah.
really it just as our world goes through cyclical patterns throughout the years, I feel like it's churning and turning and will come anew. And that may not mean that the whole world is in peace all at once either.
No.
It can be bits and pieces and parts. And then it may, just as we were talking about with the sun analogy, like how on one side it's, daytime and one time it's nighttime. So it's kind of understandable. And now having the experience that I have, stepping into my inner peace day after day, bit by bit, piece by piece, stepping out, getting pulled out into the world and all the things, and then coming back to my peace, gave me the strength in order to see that there may never be one world that's whole and all in peace. Maybe there
Mm.
will, and I definitely have high hopes for that. But at the same time, seeing the world as peaceful in the way that it is, because it is the natural balance of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
And
your analogy. I'm sucked in by your
one of
analogy
the
of the weights
yeah, it is
because
the same thing. Just as a lot of people go to the gym to lift weights because it brings them a sense of peace or fulfillment or
mm,
strength, or what, fill in the blank, whatever. And it's very much go to the gym to step into peace. Your Buddhist monks, they go to the gym of mindfulness every day,
yeah,
and they do it for 8 hours a day, or whatever their routine is. And that's how they can still walk through the world of chaos. The Buddhist monks can walk down a street in New York City, or the busiest town in your country, and not be affected by things because they built that muscle. And so
yes,
there's a book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh
hmm,
that also helped me expand. Have you read it?
I have, yeah.
You have. Okay. Have you read all of the? I think he's got like three or four. I can't remember. I think it was three.
I've read three. I didn't
Yeah.
know there was a fourth.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it was three. Yeah. And that really, I go back and revisit that quite often, because it really helped me expand and helped me be able to. It was things that I knew. It's like I knew deep down inside, but it helped just bring it to the surface so that I could see it. And I'm like, yeah. So I may not like that uh, a bear eats another animal to feed its family. I may not like that aggression and that, but that is part of the process of life. And I can also see the beauty in it, that because that other animal was there, it gave the bear and its family life too.
Yes,
And so, I can see how, and if we just use that analogy, like within the matters of the world, and seeing how those are at play. And yeah, and there's times where it's a little bit more difficult than others. I got into a spree a couple of years ago where there was a series, a TV series out, and it was Criminal Minds.
hmm,
And I don't know if you've seen that or if it's in other countries, but they went really in depth into horrible, horrific situations, and it was basically the FBI that would go into serial murderers, and like, but they did the psychological profiling on them, and they broke down, this is why this person's going to be like this. They had a parent that, they had a situation that did this, and then they like, and I'm like, I hit a point where I'm like, oh, I can see why they're doing what they're doing. It doesn't mean that I agree with it, but it made
no,
sense. And like once it made sense, I had more empathy and understanding for that person. And yes, that person does need to do some work, and there are some things. And but then at the same time, I had the thought, well, I'm like, well, if these people are bred because that's what they grew up knowing, like, why don't we put them in an environment, maybe that could be the person that, you know, that like has to, take animals' lives to put like in the meat factory. Like, I would not
Yeah.
be a good person to work in a meat factory to take animals' lives every day. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
I could do that. Yes, if I had to, most likely, but I would put my family on berries and herbs. I'm like, we'll eat bark if we have to for a little while because I don't know that that's just not in my nature.
Hmm.
But if those people are bred for that, then let's put them to good use and let them feel like they're a part of society because somebody has to do that, like in some cases for the people that do eat meat.
I love it.
A life has to be taken in order for that. So I feel like if we were to change our structure to that would probably lessen the severity and it wouldn't be so much of an issue because they wouldn't be taking unwilling lives, they would be taking lives to feed, which,
Yeah.
I don't know,
It's
it serves a better purpose in my opinion. But yeah,
it's definitely
when they
something
appoint
I've
me president or whatever, I'll start making some changes. I don't think I have to worry about that anytime soon, though.
no, no. It's definitely something I've been thinking about, and it's great. I was going to even ask you about how to deal with that 'cause you're you're thinking of bears and all that sort of stuff. It reminds me of people. Well, when I look at Western society, I see a lot of greed operating at the highest levels of power, which is
Mhm.
pretty common through history. And
Yeah.
I would almost analogize those highly powerful, greedy people with predators.
Mm.
And predators are really important to an ecosystem. If you don't have predators in an
Mhm.
ecosystem, then the ecosystem falls out of balance really quickly.
Yeah.
I think the beauty for humans is we can decide what balance we want to a certain extent. We're not going to
Yeah.
get rid of people's greed. I can't see that going
Mhm.
away anytime soon. We're not going to get rid of people who are people pleasers, who fawn over everything, that they're a part of everything as well. So yes, finding some solutions that work for everybody in such a way that we feel like we're actually living a quality life and putting
Yeah.
those we'll call them assets because in the right framing that they are all assets,
Yes.
putting those assets to the best use of the totality of the environment. I don't know how to do that yet, but it's something I've been thinking on quite a lot recently. Is
Yeah.
because I'm feeling into that state of yes, this is a natural part of what it is to be human because
Mhm.
we're part animal, we're part spirit. The animal part is going to be greedy, and it's
Yeah.
also going to try and fit into the group and all these other things that humans tend to do out of fear.
Yeah.
And it's part of our experience here. So how do we embrace that part of the experience as a collective, as a whole, while
Mhm.
still being this energetic being which is designed to give love and to connect. I I don't have answers, but I have lots of questions. So
Yeah. No, and I've had those same questions and in I'm very much engrossed in the Western culture because I'm here, but I've studied a lot of other cultures and I bring that wisdom in and do my best to find balance for me. And in building my business and working with other business minded people and watching and understanding the process of it, I see that the people that are at the highest level that some people see them as greedy, and as you say, like greed, we still need greed because greed is also a form of motivation and determination, and that helps us grow and expand. And once we reach a certain level, we're bound to tap out at some point in time, and it can get destructive. I was just talking to a client the other day about this, and they're in the modeling field, and they're like, "Well, once a person hits a certain status, it's, or well, they didn't even say that, but they said, it's, I can't believe it. This person did such and such, and all of a sudden turned, abusive to other people. And I'm like, it's to be expected. Once you reach a capacity of that, it's like if you collect rocks, right? Let's say you collect rocks. So everywhere you go, you collect rocks. And eventually your house is going to be nothing but rocks, and you're not going to be able to move, and it's going to be so heavy, and it's just going to be and it might be destructive because the rocks might start falling over and like breaking walls, and the weight of it is just going to like bring your house down to a crumble. And here you had good intentions because you love rocks and you just wanted to bring rocks home and put your environment into, bring your environment into a more grounded place, but then it kind of brought it all to a crumble at the same time. And I started looking at that and seeing that, yes, if we're not conscious, and even if we're conscious, there's a possibility that we could offend or affect somebody else in a negative way too. And so, like, I know there's been many times where I felt more confident and skilled at things, and I said things or did things to other people that may not have been the right thing to do. And at the same time, in some instances, they were what was needed to be done, and it wasn't good feeling on either end of the spectrum. So I started seeing it as, like the people of high influence that have a lot of money in the United States specifically. I can't speak for other countries because I haven't been there, but I have a feeling that it's similar to kings and queens of other countries and stuff. Once they reach a certain level, it's bound to be that there are going to be some people that, or some situations that don't go as to be expected. We can hope that they would make amends and do things that, are better. But at the same time, I've also, as a business owner, as a mother, as a, I was married before, so going through relationships and situations, I can see like climbing the ladder of success or in whatever area of life it is for you. You're the only one that can climb that ladder to get yourself to that point, whether it be in work, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be in anything. And I commend those people on one aspect because it's not an easy journey. And, like a common thing that's known is a lot of women have to sleep their way to the top, or you have to work, but men have to do the same thing too. They have to do things that they may not want to do, or say things that they may not want to say, or have sales situation go the way that they may not want it to go, so that they can make their quota, so that they can get to the top. And it's not a simple journey to get to the top for anyone. So I can see their struggle and their strife and how they got to where they are. And so then I can say that it's okay, that I understand why they are where they are. And I would hope that they would change it in some way, but maybe that was the role that they're here to play, to show everyone
Yeah.
else how, when you get to the top, maybe you can do it differently. Like there's a lot of corporations that once it reaches a certain level, then the entry level people don't get treated as well. Maybe that shift has changed. And I for me, what I do is when something bothers me, I start studying and looking into it. And there's actually companies that have started where there was one specifically, and I think it was Oregon based, but it was a credit card processing company, and the owner of the company was making millions of dollars and decided that they were going to take a pay cut. And they made across the board, everyone in the whole entire company was making the same amount of wages, and everybody was donating. And he said once they did that, like when they had a bad year and things, so he brought it to everybody's concern, and everybody agreed to take a certain amount of pay cut to keep the business afloat. Like everybody started pitching in, and everybody started to want to help the company. And they literally said, we'll take a pay cut because we believe in the company, And then after the fact, I think the next year later, he made enough revenue that he was able to pay them back. Like it was reciprocal.
Yeah.
It was an environment that came together. And if we wouldn't have had structures and systems in the past that wouldn't hadn't failed or done wrong, or been immoral in the process to what it looks like to most, then that wouldn't have happened. And I believe that if that happened, it's going to start a ripple effect and more people may start to do it. At least that's my hope, and that's what I choose to do with my business. It's like when I as I'm growing my team, I want to bring on people that are going to be reciprocal about things and work together, and we can compromise, and both parties can get most of their needs met. And if not, they're willing to say, I'm willing to sacrifice this for a period of time in order to help out if I can get, XYZ later, because we all have those wants and those needs. And those primal, that primal, what was it you called it earlier? Not
Mm.
ego or pride, but to get those needs met
Like the
um
primal
in a
animalistic.
more healthy way. Yes, animalistic. There you go. Sorry. I couldn't get
Ah,
it out. So
it's all good.
in the way that I resolve that for myself is continuing to set the intentions and look for the good in the areas, and then do the best that I can in hopes that that will start to shift things. And I can already see in the younger generations how they're coming out, and already the kids in their 20s and their 30s now are like, we want to do this differently, like, and I can see the ripple effect. So I choose to take my focus off of the specifics and look more at the general. And if you look at the general more, you can see how it evens out a lot more, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
I can also,
yeah,
I go to the other end of the spectrum where you have the higher corporate, or the country, deities, the people that are at the highest, and how they chose to get there. And then I can also go and look and say that, and sometimes this is a little difficult for people to hear, but the people that are living on the streets are choosing to live on the streets to an extent. Some reach out and they'll go to the shelters and ask for help. Others don't see the possibility of that happen. And I've been in environments and situations where people have tried to help those people out, and multiple people try to help those people out, and they still choose to think that that's the only way to do it. And so therefore they are choosing to live that life, and it's not an easy life to live. And to me, it's just as hard to live a life on the streets as it is to live a life in a high rise, because
hmm
you have to fight just as many demons, you have to fight just as many predators, you have to fight just as many, you know what I mean? And whether this person's fighting their inner darkness, their, all the things that are coming up along with the weather and the elements, but this person's still also fighting those same things. And I feel like if more people can see and understand that, then we'll take the pressure off of that, because so many people are pointing fingers and pointing their energy and everything to those. So it gives those situations more power, right? Because
yes,
we're putting our intentions there. Whereas if we take it off of that, things will settle. And now all of a sudden, the person that's at the top has no status, no, nobody wants to utilize their products or whatever. And then what happens? It starts to come back down. And
yeah,
two, there's no one person who has stayed at the top of the status their whole entire life either. It's always changing. There's always somebody that evolves and moves. And that's all, of course, in my opinion. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now, there's some bits there that are probably very confronting for people. I know, I get what you're saying when you're talking about homeless people choosing to be there. I feel like it's more nuanced, but then the part you said afterwards about where we put our intention and our action bleeds back into what you say. So it's a tricky one to navigate because
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying, yet there are foundational issues that are probably contributing to making it more for people. But
Hmm.
at what point is putting your attention on that making it worse? At what point is it better? It's like it's a very
Yeah,
it's a very
it's a
difficult
dance.
thing to navigate. Yeah,
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 yeah.
and for me, get
Yeah, one of the things I guess that made it easier for me is it, I've gone back and seen how I chose to go back to my lowest points. And
hmm
there was a time and place when I was a single mom, and so I needed financial assistance. I didn't want to get financial assistance, but I finally brought myself to the point where I'm like, maybe I should get financial assistance. I filled out the paperwork and I made like $500 a year too much, so I couldn't get the financial assistance. And I was, at the time, I saw that as a bad thing. But now I look at that as a gift, because if I would have got that financial assistance, I probably would have stayed stuck in that mentality, in that environment. And instead, I had no choice but to grow,
yeah,
because I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. So now what is right? And so, and there was multiple times where I was in the heat of, dysfunctional relationships where I was, just as much a part of it as the other person was. And was like, okay, do I stay here and stay in this, or do I pull myself out? Do I make a change? Do I do something different? And I chose to stay in a lot of those situations for a while. Back in that time, I didn't think that I was choosing that. I thought that they were doing that to me. And so
yeah,
that goes back to the person that's living on the street. They feel like that's the only thing that they can do because that's all that they know. They have multiple people come up and say, hey, here's some water. You can come stay at the shelter. No, that's okay. I can't do that. I can't stay at the shelter because, there's a lot
yeah,
of them that will insist on, no, I'm fine here. Everything's okay here, because that's what's safe to them. And that's what makes them feel safe and secure, is because they have control over that environment and they know that environment. Um, so, and I think because I've taken the time to work through my inner stuff with that, and like see, it took a while for me to admit that I made a conscious choice, and in some cases sought out a lot of the situations that went wrong. I didn't want to, I held anger towards my ex-husband for over 15 years. I never said it around my daughter, but around friends and in certain situations, it was always, he did this, it was his fault, it was that. After 15 years went by, I happened to hear Tony Robbins speak, and he's like, what's the common one denominator in all those situations? And I was like, oh, I don't like that. Like, I don't like that at all. Like,
yeah,
it's like, no, that's not. And I kind of avoided it for a little while and kind of ping ponged around the idea. But I thank God that I took the time to realize that, yes, I did just as much. And so then I dove down the whole rabbit hole of all the things that I did wrong in the situation, and how I could have showed up as a better wife, and how I could have, made different choices, down to the intentions on what I wanted to do. When I got married, my intentions were I wanted to get married and I wanted to have a baby. I didn't say that I wanted to get married to someone that I can work well with, that, I didn't get
yeah.
specific. And so I got what I asked for.
Eh,
And so, it's like, yeah. And so, and it was a great experience. And I have my daughter, and like so many wonderful things came from that. And if I wouldn't have addressed that anger and that all that stuff that had come up, I called my ex-husband up and I apologized. And I was like, I'm sorry, for all that I did in the relationship. I know that I was a bitch and I had issues, and and I can very much see that now. And I can't go back and change it. And
no.
you know, it was what it was, and I was grateful for that. Unfortunately, a few years ago, he passed away from suicide.
Oh,
And I know firsthand, because he had a lot of the same mentality of life. This is happening to me, and this is always, he had the same story 23 years later as he did when we were married.
yeah,
And I did the work, and I I fought through all the old patterns and old stories that I told myself in the past so that I could be where I am today. And so I've walked a lot of that walk.
Yeah.
And a lot of it came down to facing my own shit, for lack of better words. And admitting that, yeah, I played the mean evil villain in a lot of situations, and I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. And so who do I get to be? And what do I need to make peace within myself so that I don't show up in other situations like that? And it's not to say that there won't ever be another time where I raise my voice or say something, but the difference that will change is after the fact, I am much better at addressing it. I actively do
Yeah.
that with the people in my life that are willing to do it. My daughter specifically, like, I'll just randomly say something and I'll leave the room and I'll come back and I'm like, okay, what I said probably just came out sounding like a guilt trip. And I'm sorry, I did not mean it that way. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I can address it, like I hear it as it's almost coming out of my mouth, and
Yeah.
I'm getting closer to catching it before it even does and saying, okay, give me a second. What else can I say besides that? But it takes that stopping and thinking, and there's a lot of the times where I'll see politics or things that are happening, and yeah, the first thing I want to say is that's stupid. They're mean. Why do they got to do, like I want to say all these horrible cross things, but if I stop back and I step back and I look at the situation for what it really is, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, they're working it out. They're figuring it out. And the thing is that I'm not involved in that situation. So there's only so much that I can do. Yes, I could go
Yes.
protest, I could go apply, to sit on, to go through it all, and I can make a change, but I feel like the gift that I get to give is making a change from here, and the ripple effect of helping those that I can.
Yeah.
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 And I've
That's
also seen like how Marianne Williamson, like, and there's other brave souls that are willing to step up, and of course I only know Western government um full as much as I do, but Marianne Williamson and a few others they're out there and they are working at bringing enlightenment and bringing a different perspective into the politics of the world. So I see the change. It's churning, it's turning, and it's just on a global aspect. I know it took me years to change my stuff, and it's still an act in process. I'm still moving with it. So globalization, 8 million people, or 8 billion people, it might take a little bit of time. So I'm
just a
holding
little bit.
holding space for it to happen as quick as possible, but yeah.
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 That's really cool. Like in all of that, oh, there's so many threads in there, but I think you put it quite beautifully in a lot of ways. I have different thoughts on some of the aspects, but not
Hmm.
in the totality of what you're saying. It's probably more in the finer detail stuff. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think for me that's just a different way of looking at at the same sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me that I would point out from the way where I come from, it's we are responsible for what happens in our lives, but it doesn't mean we're responsible for the events that happen to us, but we're responsible for how we choose to deal with them in that moment. So like
Yeah.
um, a big part for me through the first part of what you were talking about um, was talking about somebody who changed. They were at the model that was at this level, and then they changed into being something rather different. My experience of that
Hmm.
is a case of when people feel like they have the power to influence something, you see them
Hmm.
shed their skin and see who they really are in those moments
Hmm.
of power, who they really choose to be, not who they've been pretending to be to get to that spot. And that's up to them.
Yeah.
And I've had this happen
Hmm.
to me through one of my early relationships. But I chose at that time not to confront it. I chose to just be shocked and stunned by it instead of actually confronting it and dealing with it. And so for a lot of years, I was bitter and angry about this person that switched, and it was like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
this is all crazy. I'm
Yeah.
not responsible that they did that per se, but I'm responsible for not seeing any signs before. I'm responsible for allowing certain events to happen and contributing in my own ways because nobody's perfect in any relationship. And then I'm most
Yes.
especially responsible for choosing to deal with it the way I did. And so
Yeah.
that, I don't know, that's just one thing I'd point out from my point of view. It's not that,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, people can find themselves, to go back to the on the streets thing, people can find themselves on the streets for a variety of reasons that might be beyond their direct control.
Mm-hmm.
And that part you're talking about where the self belief is what keeps them there is correct. If they
Mm-hmm.
choose to find another way, it's not to say it's going to be easy because the lower you go down that totem pole, the harder it is to pull yourself up. But it is
Yeah.
possible. There are avenues, there are
Mm-hmm.
directions. Sometimes you need a bit of luck as well, but if your
Yeah.
attitude and your belief is I can, then you're going to look for
Mm-hmm.
the opportunities that allow you to be,
Mm-hmm.
is the way I would look
Yes.
at that. But yeah, overall, I
Yeah.
think you've encapsulated that wonderfully and
I
beautifully.
agree. I agree with you as well too, because in my relationship with my ex-husband specifically, I thought I knew. One of my things is one of my out of all my senses that I have is I'm a knower. Like I just know things sometimes and I don't always know how I know them, but it can also be my kryptonite because I can know that I know everything. And I've been I check in with myself and try to humble myself as much as possible with that because there is always places to grow and I'm never going to know everything. But in our marriage, I knew what I wanted. And
Yeah,
so what I wanted was to not feel the feelings that I had within me and to not address all the things that were within me. So I attracted an amazing partner that was strong enough to stand up in front of me and show me what I had going on within me. And so
yeah,
like since then I didn't realize that at that time, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was going on. I tried all these different avenues to work with it, but it was all in wanting to fix him and not seeing my inner stuff. And so I had to sit with my inner mental issues and my inner ups and downs and all the things that were on. And I had to, I opened up Pandora's box and was like, what's going on? I finally hit the point where I'm like, I don't like that all of a sudden I flip into somebody different, and so it's not that I can control it 100%, but I can definitely start to choose to make different choices moving forward. So it's very, yes, I very much agree with what you're saying, as well too. Yeah, that is very true for me. So yeah,
yeah,
it was unpacking all that. Yeah.
yeah. And it's a tough thing to live through because I still do it now. Like, I mean, that to me, that's the point of being human. It's taking on the knowledge that yes, you're responsible for every step
Hmm.
that happens in your life. Not, you know, you
Yeah.
might be caught in an earthquake. You're not responsible for the earth cracking open and shaking you around for a few minutes. You're
No.
responsible for what you do with that event. You know,
Yeah.
so in that essence, we
Yeah.
are all 100% responsible for our own lives. So
Yeah.
if you find yourself in a crappy place, how can you make it better? How can you choose to make it better?
Yeah.
And as
You
harsh
could
that's going
go
to
as
sound,
far as to say, no,
sorry,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry. No. What were you saying though? Finish, please finish.
Oh, I think I was just going to say it might sound really harsh to some people that are going through some pretty heavy shit, but
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
as harsh as it is real. The heavy shit is happening, whether you like it or not. The
Yeah.
only one that's going to be able to pull you out of it truly is yourself. You'll get
Hmm.
help along the way, quite likely,
Yeah.
most probably. But
We'll be
it's
walking
it's
right
up.
beside
Yeah, exactly. But you have to choose it. It's always a choice and a responsibility from within.
you. Yes. Yes. Most definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Because you could, I started to go into the, well, you could say that you chose to be in the place that had the earthquake. Like you chose, but then that gets you into the whole rabbit hole of it turns into another level of control, trying to control every environment, which is next to impossible because you could go somewhere else and they have a flood, and then you go somewhere else and they have a sandstorm. Like there's, you just like you said, finding, and I'm glad I let you continue when I interrupted because I could see now it's just yes, start making the best of, and making the decisions from where you're at and finding your way through that. Yeah.
But
And
that word,
very much very much when I was in the heat of the moment in my past, like when I was stuck in it, like you said, it's going to be harsh for those people that are hearing it. And I can very much speak to that because there were a lot of people that were amazing and stepped up in my life and told me the things that I didn't want to hear. And it came across and it stung and it hurt and I got mad. But after I got mad and I got stung and I got hurt, I was like, oh, but there's truth to that. Like that, but it was that conscious decision to see the truth. Is that really true? Like, is what they're saying really true? Like, if I take myself out of the situation and if somebody else were in my shoes, would I say the same thing about them, or could I see that in them? And once I realized that is when I really started making the shift. And if it wasn't for those people that lovingly pushed me and said the harsh things, I don't know that I would be here. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. And there is now I'm on the aspect of I want to hear the whisper and make the change and be a little bit more aware versus having to listen to the harsh stuff. But I very much hear it from time to time too. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's a concept you brought up, or a word you brought up a couple of times, control,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I find that to be pretty much at the heart of most people's internal and external issues. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the root of fear, but fear is infested in the concept of control. And
Yeah.
some people are seeking to control the outside world because their inside world is chaos, and some people are trying to control their inside world because the outside world's chaos, and whichever it is. But
Hmm.
it's almost, I can't think of any situations where we do something out of fear or lack and it's not some version of us trying to control either our inside world or our outside world. It's this thing that happens like
Yes.
every time we have a complaint about something or whatever it is, any little thing that you do in your day, it's like at some level,
Yeah.
everything that's like comes down to some. Oh, I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be this. I wanted it to be that. Why can't they be like this?
Yes.
Why can't I be like that? Whatever it is, it's just such a crazy thing that we as humans we kind of need to confront it every day. Like,
Hmm.
what what's your experience with that personally?
Oh, a lot. Because it is, I've definitely my family, well, and society as a whole, really a lot. Everybody, I feel everybody feels safer when they know they can control the situation or they have some sort of control in the situation. Going back a little bit into my astrology, I also know, and I feel like everybody has these aspects of them. But what I was able to do was to work through the control and find how I can had control in freedom as well. Like
Yes.
letting go, it's kind of like if you've got a canoe or a kayak and you're pedaling upstream, you have control. But or you're pedaling, you're rowing upstream, you have control, but you're also fighting the current. Whereas if
Yes.
you turn and you go downstream and you're in the same kayak, you still have control and you're going with the flow of things. But that's terrifying a lot of the times because you don't know what's coming around the corner. You don't know if it's going to be a waterfall. You don't know, if so it's and there's a dance to that part of life too, like not trying to control everything to where you're consistently trying to go upstream and fight everything. I mean, there's a time and a place for that. But at the same, like if you are going towards the waterfall, yeah, you kind of want to turn and you want to fight enough upstream to where you can get over to the side because if it's a big enough waterfall, you may not come out on the other side. So
Yeah.
you might have to fight upstream a little bit. But then if you know that things are going to be safer, you trust that even if you go over, you're going to roll through it and find, follow with the current. And if you go down and around and you get lucky and you miss the rocks, you'll probably pop up out of the water at some point and be able to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've very much danced that dance, and I continue to because I have seen myself create so much magic in just going day by day. What's the next thing to do? What's the next thing to do? What's the next thing to do? And I've also seen myself plan out everything and structure it so that I had control because a lot of the times that's what it is. And it's also setting my cruise ships, they set their destination
Yeah.
and the storms come and they kind of knock them to the side a little bit and then they just course correct afterwards. So it's finding that balance between that because yeah, I very much, well, in my relationship with, I had a vision, even though it was simple in vision at the time, but I had a vision in mind for what I wanted things to be. And I just knew it and I wanted it. And so I was doing it and I was implementing it. But what he wanted was completely opposite. And I didn't know to implement communication and to talk about things prior, which would be the freedom and going flow and going downstream and saying, what is it that we both really want? Like, what do you want the end of this journey to look like? Or what would you like to experience on the way? It's going to change, it's going to look different as we go. And I had a big issue with that because I used to be fixated on, no, this is what I want and this is it and it's got to be this way or no other way. And like especially in growing my business, I had the most experience with it because when I grew my business, the brick and mortar part of it, first time around, it was just me. My daughter had left for college. I was working, 3 jobs at the time to get things up and going, and I built it and grew it and saw what I did on my own. And I was just like, wow. And a lot of it, I had no clue. I was throwing it all together at the last minute, like, like literally, quite literally, like, in so many ways. Like, I knew I wanted to, and that it was an 11-year dream. I had put it off for 11 years after I got out of massage therapy school. I was just working on friends and family. I didn't want to start my own business, but I was working at a mom and pop place learning how to do business stuff, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I can now look back on that and see. So basically I've been able to look back on my life and see the times when I didn't have control, the times when I had control, and to see how I navigated both of those, that I started gaining confidence and trust and faith in myself, that I know that I can figure out whatever is put in front of me. And just go with the flow and just write it out as much as I can. And then I also know there's some times where I need to step back and say, okay, I need to structure this a little bit more. And it's like,
Yeah.
and I know if I can, the more and more I build that trust in myself, the less and less I need of that. But I also know, and I have the strength now to stop in a situation and say, I really want to do this with, whoever I'm working with and whatever the situation is. I need this, or this so that I can be a little bit more better at this or deliver better, or just to have confidence and feel more secure so that I can deliver whatever it is that you're asking for. And I never stopped myself in the past, and I'm learning that more and more nowadays. There's times where I'll just somebody will ask me a question and I just open my mouth and say yes. And I'm like, why the hell did I say that? Like, and sometimes I've gotten myself in some really good situations. Sometimes I've gotten myself in some really bad situations. But now I know that I can stop and say, hey, this was really cool and I really enjoyed it and you're really amazing, but it's time for me to go a different direction. Like it's time for me to, to do something else. And
Yep.
I'm not, and I guess that's the other aspect of control where I'm not having to say that they did whatever wrong. I'm choosing to take the control and put it in my own hands and say, I chose that. Like to me, that's how I changed the control of what part of this did I choose, what part of this didn't I not choose, like how did I roll with it? And that and I really feel that this that's a breaking point and that can help a lot of people that get stuck in wanting to control the situations is when we find our internal control, then we don't have to necessarily control the outside situations
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much.
Very much so.
We still
Thank you.
can't,
That's
but
beautiful. I love it.
yeah.